Thank you, Bruna. I think now I'll take over. Hello, everybody. I'm Christina. I'm one of the founding members of PINT, and I'll be moderating tonight's event. So if you have any questions, like Gabriela said, for Stênio or Bruna, please do ask, raise your hand, physical hand, or or you just can write in the chat. And ask your question in either Portuguese or English, okay? I think I'll just start kicking off with one question to Stênio. But first of all, I want to say congratulations on winning the National Book Award for Translated Literature. I've got a copy of your book here prior the book award. So anyway, so Stênio, the first question is for you, and I'd like to, in your book, the character Raimundo, he decides to leave his hometown. He wants to move as far as possible from home, and he says, "There must be many faraways. I went, watching the world pass by the truck window, faster than a river current. I can't let myself drown or let anyone else drown me." So like Raimundo, you also left your hometown. Could you tell us more about your trajectory as a writer, and how the idea of writing this book came about? And if there are any parallels between you and Raimundo, his life and your life?
Yes. Pronto. Oi, Cristina. Obrigado.
Hello, Christina. Thank you very much.
Pensar no Raimundo,
Well, when I think of Raimundo,
exigiu de mim revisitar
it certainly demanded from me to revisit a bit of my own story. I certainly do share some connections with Raimundo, but also some differences. Throughout the creative process of writing the book and imagining where the letter came from, when I decided that the letter would be the result of homosexual interrupted relationship, I believe that my own life and experience as a gay man had an influence in that. And this decision also mirrored back at me, because I knew that while I wrote the book, I would be revisiting some moments of my own life, especially moments of anguish, tension, shame. And this is essentially what I explore in Raimundo's self-acceptance process. As you said it yourself, I also share with him the background from a rural area. Until I was 16, I lived in the rural area of a small town in the state of Ceará in the northeast of Brazil, a small town called Limoeiro do Norte. And I left home as well, but for different reasons. And I think it's important also to show the differences between my life and Raimundo's life. First of all, I was very much welcome by my family, whereas Raimundo wasn't. Also, Raimundo, he was kicked off from home after he had a very difficult conversation with his mother, whereas I left to find or to fight for a better future, going to school, going to college, and afterwards finding a job so that I could help my family. So these are quite distinct situations. And I am reminded of another similarity with Raimundo. In spite of all these differences, I'm going back and forth between differences and similarities, but in spite of the differences, there's also a similarity, which is this attraction for words. He's trying to learn to read and write. He spent his life trying to learn how to read and write, and he only does it when he's older. Whereas I wanted to write his story, and I had wanted to write the story for many years. It took me about 5 years to write the book, between the first draft and when it was finally published. But I have notes that are even older than that. 8 years before the book was published, I already had some notes about it. So that was a long time, dragging this desire with me, this desire to write in general, just to write. This is a desire that I've had for decades. It almost became a burden, this unfulfilled desire to write. Ever since I was 12 or 13, I always wanted to write. I don't know. I asked my mother to give me a typing machine because I imagined I needed a typing machine to write. That was my head as a 12-year-old boy, the countryside and the backlands of the Ceará, and I had this typing machine with me to this day. But ever since then, I always wanted to write, but I didn't dedicate truly to that. A small short story here, the beginning of a story there, but always keeping it for myself. I never showed it to anyone, and I never published anything. Finally, in 2016, I started having writing a workshop with Socorro Acioli, a writer. And that's when I realized that was the right time, the right circumstances around me telling me, Stênio, it's now or never. So I had to feel that moment. And that was a moment when I was in my room after one of these classes with Socorro Acioli, and I decided I will write Raimundo's story. And that's where writing this novel really began.